actually told you this before. We were just told by the people at the Orchard Shopping Center they were going to start taking, I think, between 5 and 10% of my gross. And I said, that's not going to work. So we hopped in a car and drove down the street, trying to decide what to do. And Carolyn, my wife, said, why don't I stop in that little tavern there and ask her if she wants to sell? So she walked in, and it was a girl named Carolina. She was quite old, and she owned a tavern. It was called the Carolina Tavern. And she asked her if she ever thought about selling. She said, I've been thinking about that. After that, it's history. We bought it. At that time, it was Andrea Strider had started, Dave Rudolph, and Carol, a guy named Jim Oberneuferman. And I think Richard Voss started some of the time in there because I was in there for over 10 years. At that point, I think that Artie was about 6 and Ann was about 8. Yes, we actually started it in 1972, Vandalia. Then we moved into 601 Illinois, and Conley had rebuilt the studio. It was about 5 times as large. Named Jim Feldman came into the store one time and was told us about how he used to do stained glass and loved to do it. And he cut a couple of pieces in there. And at that time, I think it was Andrea and Carol and Conley all talked me into starting a stained glass store. So we started a place called Florian Art Glass. Spent thousands of dollars on every color of glass you could think of. We had maybe 5 tons of it. They used to roll it in on rollers. And after I got it all in there, the guy quit. But he was there just long enough to teach Dave Rudolph how to cut glass. And then it's history. He did all the cutting after that. And my mother-in-law, her name was Merle Greer, she did all of the leading and the taping of the copper. We had that for a long time, and then we just closed it up after a while because it was hard to make any money at it. That the whole idea of the stained glass was I was going to call Rome and do all of the glass for the Catholic churches. I couldn't get to first base, so that shot that to hell. A guy walked in, he was a pretty good customer of mine, walked in and grabbed a Les Paul, held it to his side and walked out the door. And Andrea said, that guy just walked out the door with a guitar. I said, you're kidding. And we checked on a wall and it was a gold Les Paul. So we called the police, and the ones in Collinsville, they followed this guy all the way into some other town, the next town up. And they called the police because then he went into Alton, so they called the Alton police. So we had 3 police departments involved, and they caught him. And the story was that if I didn't press charges, don't ever call any of these cops anymore. So I did, and he turned out to be a good customer after that. And I carried him for a couple of $100, and he got me again. Now I think that's a good story. Well, that was the time of the MRF, and it started in there, and then it carried over to the other store I got to. But there were so many of the famous people. I mean, there were hundreds of them that played at the MRF, and I know that over half of them would walk into the store and walk out. But we was always so busy, and we didn't ever have a camera. So. And why should I actually drop in the names? I mean, everybody that had played at the MRF, there was quite a list of people.